Hi, my name's Ben Lackey. I'm a partner architect with DataStax, and today I'm going to show you how to use Azure Marketplace to deploy a brand new DataStax cluster. So let's get started. First thing, I'm going to flip over to my web browser, and I have my browser open to azure.microsoft.com/marketplace, and you can get here by just running a search for Azure Marketplace, and this is usually the first result. As you can see, there are over 3,500 different offers on the marketplace, and DataStax is one of those. So if I search for DataStax here, you see one comes up, DataStax Enterprise. This is a solution template. And a solution template is a little different than some of the other offers on the marketplace. We were actually the very first one ever available on the marketplace. Some other offers are virtual machines, and those are VM images already baked with the product installed. DataStax, instead of offering a virtual machine, offers a collection of virtual machines that all deploy on the fly. So we start when you hit deploy with Canonical's VM image, and then install Java, install DataStax, and configure the whole thing to be a cluster. Right, so let's get started with that. Click on that. Here's a description of what Cassandra is, the database underlying DataStax, some information on other users, as well as some screenshots of what you ought to get when the whole thing's done. Finally, there's a link to this deployment guide where you can find this video and other videos, various pieces of advice, and just things to get you going. So let's hit deploy and go for it. So when I hit deploy, it redirects me to my login for Azure. In my case, my login's through DataStax, and we use third-party single sign-on, Okta, so I can log into that. As you can see, it presents me with two accounts. One is my Okta account. The other is a personal account with the same login, and this is a distinction Azure Active Directory makes. So click on that, and redirects me to Okta, sign in, redirects a couple more times. Oh, and one other thing I'll mention, you can see it's sending me to portal.azure.com. There's an older interface called manage.azure.com, and that's for an earlier version of Azure. This new portal interface is built on, well, can deploy into something called Resource Manager. You can see down here. The older Manage interface only supports an older deployment mode that has various issues and we don't typically recommend. So this has redirected me to the Azure Marketplace page for DataStax specifically, the logged in page, which comes after connecting through that single sign-on. If you go directly to portal.azure.com, you can also get here. So let me open a new tab and show you how to do that. So it logs me in here. And from portal.azure.com, if I click the Marketplace tile, and just as we did before, search for DataStax in here, you can see two in this case. Staged is something we're moving through QA right now. You would not be able to see that. And this is the offer. So we're back to the same place. So to actually deploy this, I click the Create button. And it pulls up a new blade, Azure calls this. So I need to enter in what the username and password will be for the virtual machines that are provisioned. And this is the Unix level Unix level username and password. There's a blacklist of usernames, sorry. Usernames such as admin, root, administrator are all banned. So I usually call my user DataStax. And then you have to enter in a password. Passwords have to have 3 out of 4 of an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character like an exclamation point. So I'm going to enter my password in, and those both go green because it all matches. I have on my DataStax account a subscription. This is one I use. You may have a subscription if your organization has an EA, an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. If not, you can sign up for an account yourself. You'll need a credit card number. If this is the first time you've signed up, there are various promotions Azure runs, usually giving you $200 or so of free credit to use to play around with. Next up, I need to make a resource group name. The resource group is kind of a container that holds all the different virtual machines, the IP addresses, the network interface, and so on that constitute our cluster. We usually recommend deploying a DataStax cluster in its own resource group. That way it can be managed independently of anything else you might have. For instance, you might deploy the DataStax cluster in one resource group, and you might deploy the web tier that sits in front of that database in another resource group. So I'm going to call mine Ben MP1 for Marketplace. You can then choose which region you're going to deploy your cluster into. And this subscription, I think, has 13 different regions available. Depending on which region you choose, there are going to be different machine types available. For instance, I know West US has some G series machines. So hit OK here. And now 2 things to choose. How many nodes I want. How about 10? You can have between 1 and 40 nodes. The reason you can't have more than 40 in the Marketplace offer is down to a limitation on I/O for something called a storage account in Azure. We have a workaround for that limitation if you choose to deploy outside of the Marketplace using command line tools. In that case, you can deploy arbitrarily large clusters. Next up, I need to pick what sort of virtual machine I want to use. These 3 are our recommended virtual machine types. There are also a number of other virtual machines that we don't typically recommend, but we allow you to deploy. These ones are recommended because they, among various other things, they take up the entire physical box, meaning there's no chance of resource contention, and then they're just a very good size for the vast majority, probably 80% of DataStax workloads. So if I click View All here, you can see a number of other machines that are not recommended. The D1 in particular is there basically for running deployments and seeing how they work. You can't really run any queries against it. It's so small. We do not recommend it even for development. The other machine types are a bit more marginal and may be possible. Typically always recommend the D14 V2 as opposed to the standard D14. That has a newer processor that's marginally faster. So I'm going to pick that. If you don't have strong opinions in here, I would recommend the D14 V2. So hit OK here. And now it shows what the whole template we've configured looks like. I can download the template to look at later. The template's a JSON file. In this case, I'm actually just going to hit OK, though. It now redirects you to some legal information. These include the terms of use that you agree to both with DataStax and with Microsoft Azure. Just at a high level, this offer is bring your own license. That license can either be a no-fee, non-production or development license. Alternatively, if you have an existing license with DataStax, you can use that. So I'm going to hit create, and now it's going away and building my cluster. One kind of neat thing you can do while this runs, well, we'll see how long this one takes. It's 4:07 p.m. right now. So I'm going to go over here to resources.azure.com. And if I drill down a bit, I can see my resource groups, and these are various other things we have running at the moment. But here we have the resource group we just made. And you can see within that 3 deployments, Op Center, nodes, and the main deployment. This is the Marketplace wrapper around that. And you can click on those and read about what's going on. This does not refresh of its own accord. You have to do that yourself. But you can kind of do this as the deployment runs and see additional things come up. So in this case, I have a bunch of network interfaces, I have some public IPs, virtual networks, one virtual network, that's right. These all go in the same virtual network. And under compute here, all I have is an availability set. It hasn't got around to making the virtual machines yet. So hit refresh again. Let's see if we got anything else. Oh yeah, there's some virtual machines now. So this is going to build out 10 virtual machines and an 11th virtual machine that's a very small one, a standard A1, and that's going to run Op Center. As you can see, it's just using the standard canonical Ubuntu OS image, not a DataStax specific one. This may change at a later date. We're debating building an image with Java installed, which will help speed build times. So I'm going to flip back here to the portal, and you can see this is still deploying. At this point, I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll come back once this is completed. As I mentioned, we started the deployment at 4:07. So let's keep that in mind and see how long this thing takes. All right, so it's now 4:30, so 23 minutes have elapsed, and I got a message saying that my deployment had completed. So this Ben MP1 thing popped up, and it shows all these resources in here. And I can even see more if I click on the dot dot that all deployed from our marketplace offer. So there are various virtual machines, their NICs for each, and their IP addresses for each. I'm going to click on the Op Center one, Op Center virtual machine. Oh, you know, I actually want the Op Center IP address. So let's go down here. Oh, load more. And click on the Op Center IP address, and I'm going to check what that is. So here it is. Nope, thinks I want to search for it. Oops. Click to copy. Okay, copied that to the clipboard, and we can go look at that. Another way to get at this is to refresh resources.azure.com, and we can also drill down into the IP addresses for Op Center, and you can see the Op Center IP address here as well. So I'm going to open, that did not work. Let me go over here. Let me copy that and open in the web browser IP address :port 8888, 48s. And it's opening up Op Center. And look at that. We have a cluster. It's running DataStax 4.8.5, 10 nodes, has about 7 terabytes of storage available. I can click on this nodes thing over here and get a view of the cluster and mouse over and see the various nodes and the IP addresses for each of those. I'm going to click on one of those. How about this node? And I'm going to copy its IP address, and now we're going to SSH into it and check on it. But it looks like we have a running cluster that's all healthy and just waiting to do things. So if I flip over here and open a terminal window, I can SSH to DataStax, the username I defined earlier, at that IP address, and type in the password I defined earlier, and it logs me in. Clear to make all this go away. One command I can enter is node tool status, and that gives me a description of the cluster. Another thing I can do is type CQL shell and start up a shell, see what key spaces I have, and so forth. So that's a working cluster in 20 some odd minutes. Stay tuned for our next videos on how to deploy from the command line and what to do once you have a running cluster. Thanks.